Didn't think I'd forget about you guys, right? I still got a few videos lined up for at least the rest of this week, so hopefully that'll keep you guys busy. Hopefully by then I'll get my internet sorted. But today we're going to be looking at the news about PlayStation, their earnings call, and the information that came out. We discussed a bit of it in the actual stream yesterday. Some of it a bit shady, some of it a bit weird, and some of it honestly just damn right lies, because there's a lot of misinformation here. Of course you're going to have the converts coming out and take any chance that they can get to bash on Xbox to you know make sure that they're getting that knife in. And obviously Peter over here is still pretty hurt by the fact that Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, and Sea of Thieves went to PlayStation. And honestly, even Hi-Fi Rush going to PlayStation couldn't save Tango, because no one wanted the game. So I don't really know what his angle is. I know he's saying that it's destroyed, it was a destruction of their console base. Considering Twitter isn't even 1% of the Xbox users, the casuals don't really give a crap. But we're not going to go into that today. What we're looking at, in fact, is this over here. Now, this says PS5 shipped almost 5 times more than Xbox Series XS in Q1, research firm estimates. So these are estimates, right? That they've done 5 times more. Xbox recently reported a 31% decline in first quarter hardware revenue. Sony reported a 29%. Now, the problem here is the word shipped. Shipped doesn't mean sold. Also, when it comes to consoles, PS5 consoles, the PSVR 2 and the PS Portal are counted within these numbers. So knowing that information, that the Portal, the PSVR 2 are counted as PS5 hardware, how much of that 59.3 million is actually PS5 consoles? How many of those have actually been sold? Because ship just means that they've gone to retailers. Now, I know there's the whole notion that there's still a bunch of these consoles sitting in scalpers' warehouses, but at the end of the day, those were purchased, whether you want to say legally or not, they were purchased and the money was paid to the retailers. So those are, in my eyes, counting towards it. The fact that they're in warehouses is irrelevant. But the fact that Sony counts shipped to retailers as consoles sold, and the fact that they're looking at the PSVR 2 and the Portal as consoles sold, does dilute this. But what's worse is, if they're looking at shipped, they're probably looking at the PSVR 2 and the Portal being shipped as well. So honestly, we could be actually looking here at potentially a quarter of that, or 2/5 of this number, actually just being padding and fake numbers. It really is that simple. We could be looking at that. Now, of course, the other aspect of this that we need to look at is the fact that PlayStation has released the PlayStation Slim. Now, for those people that were on the PS5, well, a lot of them would have been upgrading to the PlayStation Slim. It's a natural thing. You've got a PS5, you want to have the latest tech, so you're going to want the PS5 Slim. So you're probably going to sell your PS5, trade it in, and buy a new one. So though they are selling additional consoles now, they're not actually moving the needle when it comes to MAUs. And this is where the whole PC debacle comes in, because they want those PC units. So let's just create a scenario. I've got a PS5. Let's say I wanted the PS5 Slim. I sell my PS5 and get a PS5 Slim. At this point, Sony has registered 2 sales on me. Then the PS5 Pro comes along. So I sell my Slim and I buy the Pro. Sony has now registered 3 PS5 sales. But in reality, I've only got 1, because I'm only one person, and only me is playing it, no one else. So can you see how when you start releasing different variations of consoles, you actually start to see an impact on what that actually does? So when we go back, even as far as back as like the PS2, the PS3, where you had like multiple versions of the PS2, multiple versions of the PS3, all of these factored into padding their numbers as people upgraded their console to the new and shiny model. But with the PS5, it's a little worse, because they've never actually announced true sold numbers. It's always been padded numbers because it's shipped. And what's worse, they've decided to add in the PSVR 2 shipped and the Portal shipped into that number. So for all we know, from that 59 million, they could have actually sold 40 million. That's not looking too bad when it comes to Xbox's 23 million, considering their market dominance. It goes back down to a 2-1 or less than 2-1. So I'm not seeing the win that all of these are seeing right now, but you know, it gets better because we have this over here. And Gas says, listen to Sony's own words. Their focus on Gas spurred on even more by Helldivers 2 success. And Helldivers 2 has been a monumental success for Sony, even though right now the numbers have been absolutely murdered because no one can play the game. The announcement of the transition of business model to focus on engagement over sales. And this is important because the more engagement you have, the more opportunities for microtransactions. And we all know that's where the real money is. But let's have a listen to what's being said and break this down because it's important, right? Because this is the part of the actual presentation, because this is pretty much what's carrying Sony right now, the success of Helldivers 2. And it is the PC community that the PlayStation community are so hateful on right now that is actually helping them stay afloat and carry them. But let's continue.
It also contributed significantly to sales and profit last quarter. Following this success, we are looking forward to the release of live service games such as the expansion content Destiny 2 The Final Shape, which is expected to be released by Bungie on June 4th, and Concord, which is scheduled to be released this year by Firewalk Studios, which...
Now, as you can see here, from them being out of live service, they've seen the success of what live service can do. Despite what the PlayStation community want, which is single-player, story-driven games, they're basically saying, sorry, folks, at the end of the day, that money that we got from that game and the microtransactions that people are spending, you know, the war bonds and everything, I know you can earn it in-game, but a lot of people are still going to buy it, right? Because they want to spend those stuff in the game and buy other stuff. So now they're making a real push for that live service and seeing where it goes. And definitely a lot of this is going to be day and date on PC. Like Concord, it's already been announced. And obviously Bungie's with Destiny is going to be released everywhere. Xbox, PlayStation, PC. I mean, if they could actually release it on the Nintendo Switch, maybe the Switch 2 potentially, they will probably do that as well.
Which we acquired in 2023. Thanks primarily to the growing penetration of PS5, as well as the success of Helldivers 2 and third-party free-to-play titles, the number of monthly active users across PS in March remained high at 180 million accounts, up 9% year-on-year.
And it's really interesting, right? Because last year, first quarter of the year, well, the last quarter of the year, I guess, January to March, you can see they were at 108 million. The only difference between last year and this year is Helldivers. And you can clearly see the impact that the PC community releasing the game day and date has had on PlayStation. Now, it's crazy that knowing this, they've decided to, you know, cancel 177 countries. Well, I guess 180 now. We can not count Vietnam because they banned Steam on their own. So at least Sony now has one less country to worry about. But they've banned 180 countries from being able to buy the game now. And we've seen in the user and numbers that it has impacted how many people are playing. But it's clear here that those numbers that they're seeing now, that 9% increase in quarter 4, is clearly attributed to the success of Helldivers. And if this isn't a kick up the arse for Sony to decide to go with more games day and date, nothing will be. And as they have said, as you'll hear later on in the video, that user engagement now seems to be more important than game sales, because as long as they've got people playing their games, and the Portal is a great way of them doing this by keeping people connected and playing the game no matter where they are in the house, or if you can use it outside by other means, then that means that there's more chance of these people spending money in their microtransaction store. And that is what this is all about. User engagement is big, because the more you keep people in your ecosystem, the more it stops them going to other ecosystems and spending money. And the whole user engagement with PC is amazing because then that looks amazing to shareholders, and shareholders look at that number and are impressed at the potential money that can come in and decide to invest even more. And at that point, the company makes more money. So it's amazing to see this, that, one game has made such a huge difference to them. But the PlayStation community, they have to be thankful to the PC community because they are carrying this and driving this on quite heavily with Helldivers 2. But at the same time, the PC community have shown Sony that there is a demand for their games, as long as they don't have that silly PSN requirement. But there's a demand for their games to go day and date. And I do believe that they are going to go day and date with at least the next first-party single-player experience to test the waters. They just have to at this point. There's no reason for them not to try and test the waters, because after they've seen the success of this, and they'll see the potential success of Concord, if it actually is a good game with the twerking burger, things could actually, change quite drastically. And we've already seen them say themselves that there is a shift in strategy at Sony as well, as they now focus more on engagement and keeping you playing. It's not the 200 million that Xbox has at the moment, but you can clearly see that they are really pushing for that user engagement, because user engagement brings microtransactions. It's not about how many copies of the game you sell anymore. That will always factor into a certain degree. But what's important is getting the game in people's hands, getting that game so people are constantly playing it. If people are playing it, and that's why they released the Portal, because they want you stuck inside the games. They want you playing more, because the more you play, the more chance they have in selling you microtransactions. It's pretty scummy, but it is the way it is. And Helldivers is only going to help this number. And, in 2024, we if they actually released anything for that, we would have seen that Helldivers did help that number. And it's clear that PC users are pretty much carrying that game. So looking at that information alone, do you honestly believe that Sony isn't going to try a AAA single player experience day and date to see what the engagement's going to be like? And if it's really, really good and picked up and cherished and the engagement is amazing and they make a lot of sales, do you honestly think that they're going to turn away from that and start not doing day and date? I know Nixus is their only company, but let's be real here. If the money is good and the green is great, at the end of the day, that's all Hiroki Totoki cares about. I know they've got 2 new CEOs, but ultimately they still answer to the big man, and that is Hiroki Totoki, and he likes money.
Total playtime on PS in the month of March increased 15% year-on-year, and for the entire fourth quarter of the FY23, it reached the second highest level in history, second only to the fourth quarter of FY20, which benefited from significant stay-at-home demand due to the pandemic. Looking at the console cycle, we think that the PlayStation business model has changed significantly since the launch of the PS4. The business model up to and including the PlayStation 3 was focused on increasing the number of software units sold in relation to newly sold hardware for each console generation. After a transition period during the PS4 generation, the PS5 model has shifted to one where playtime on the platform has increased due to expansion of the user community beyond console generations.
So what they're saying there is essentially the PlayStation 5's focus now is essentially the same as Xbox. They want that user engagement. They want people playing their games no matter where it is. And, that's pretty much telling you that the model that Xbox is going for, even though Xbox decided to jump into this really early from 2016 with their Play Anywhere games. I mean, that's how early Microsoft started this. Really, really early. They started after. So Sony's still at the infancy of this. But what they're saying here is that is the future. Releasing our games, whether it's only day and date on PC and no other platform, is irrelevant. The fact is that those games at some point, as you can see here, and from what she's saying, is that day and date is going to be the key here, releasing it on PC, because all they want is engagement. They want more people playing their games. And if Sony can actually make it where you can actually transfer your saves from PlayStation to PC with cloud saves. Obviously, PlayStation users have to pay for cloud saves. PC users are going to get that for free because why not? They're not going to do that to PC users, which is their main audience. So that's going to be another benefit for PC users to get free cloud saves from PlayStation, while their fans on the actual console have to pay for it. But, that cross-talking, that cross-save will actually be big because it just encourages more people to play the game wherever they are. And as long as you can do that, your engagement increases, as Microsoft has shown. Their MAUs are through the roof when it comes to numbers and stats. So it's clearly working. And the more people that are in that ecosystem, the more people are spending money. And so that's basically what Sony's saying here. They want that. They want you to be playing PlayStation no matter what screen it's on. And you can bet your bottom dollar that eventually you're going to be getting apps that actually allow you to play on your PS5 through the TV and everything else. They're a few years away from that, maybe a generation away from that, but it's going to happen. The first transition right now is getting their games onto PC. And they've, with Ragnarok already announced, well, rumored, I guess, but where there's smoke, there's fire. It's going to be interesting.
Due to this change in business model, during the PS4 generation, we were able to significantly grow profits in this segment thanks to rapid digitalization and expansion of network services.
So that pretty much sums that up, right? What they're saying here is, yes, we like what's happening here. Helldivers has definitely been a success for us. We wanted to trial day and date with a segment of the market, and our transition, though it's slow, is showing us that there is a lot of revenue here to be taken from. There's a lot of growth here. And so they're definitely going into PC, and they're going now full speed. And anyone that's saying that first party, single player games aren't going to go day and date to PC, you're delusional. It's going to happen. And then at that point, it's going to be interesting to see how many of you actually decide that you're going to stay on the console or transition to PC. It'll be interesting to see, but this is happening. And they've clearly told you here that it is happening. That transition has started. So whether you like it or not, at the end of the day, Sony just doesn't care. All they're seeing is the monumental success of engagement, because engagement brings money, and money makes the company rotate. It makes it work. It makes it profitable, and it gets people investing so they can make more games. So ultimately, this is a good thing. But as we all know, especially when we saw Puerto Rock actually lose his mind, he said he's going to jump ship the moment this happens. How many of you will jump ship? Time will tell. But, I feel it's a little tongue-in-cheek, especially with this. We'll never know the true numbers, and that's why anything that they report when it comes to the console sold, I just don't care. Because until they give me the real numbers, it's all fluff. But this over here is clearly telling you that their focus is on gas, and the announcement of the transition in business model to focus on engagement over sales. They're basically now doing exactly what Microsoft is doing. Gas and engagement, the two things Stables mocked repeatedly. And it is. It is. And now, Sony has seen that that is where the money is. Engagement, because it brings money. Anyway, you let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that discussion, and I'll see you in the next one.